Hey guys, I'm back. We're going to continue on with elimination method. And this way you probably don't need any instruction because you have all the tools you need. But just in case you're struggling, I do want to go and answer the question that what if there are no common coefficients that you can clear out? So before we were multiplying or dividing or multiplying both sides, the whole equation by a negative. Because we had matching coefficients. But what happens when we don't have common coefficients? Your answer? We make them. We make them. So what we can do is we can multiply one or both to make matching coefficients. Now, my whiteboard is off, so pause, and I'll be right back. Okay, let me calibrate. Kind of sounded like jingle bells. All right, so on number one, if I look here, remember there's always an easier way to do it. So I see that this is 2, and I want to reduce my workload. So if I multiply this top one by -2, then I can get them to cancel out. So I remember to manipulate an equation, you got to do the same thing to the whole equation. So I'm going to rewrite this one, and I get -2x minus 6y equals -12. I keep the bottom one, which I did not manipulate. Now my 2's cancel out. I'm left with -13y equals -13. Divide both sides by -13, and I get y equals +1. But remember, that's only 50% of my answer. I still need to go back and solve for x. How do I do it? I evaluate either one of these equations where y is equal to 1. So I'm going to take this one. X plus 3 times 1 equals 6. And I get x plus 3 equals 6. What plus 3 equals 6? 3 does. So x has to equal 3. Remember, when you guys get lazy, you really, really, really need to check your answer. And I'm not talking rewrite it, just use some common sense here. If I plug in 3 for x, 3 plus 1 times 3 is 3, so 3 plus 3 equals 6. Checks out. Down here, 6 minus 7. 6 minus 7 is -1. That equals -1. Those points satisfy the equation, so it's checked out because both of them are correct. Okay, so that was an easy one. Now, not to waste your time, I'm just going to kind of show you, you know how to use elimination, so I'm just going to show you what we would multiply by. On number 2, I would multiply this bottom one by -3. So my top one would read 9x plus 3y equals 12. My bottom one would read -6x minus 3y equals -15. And my y's cancel out. Okay? So that's how you would do number 2, and then finish it out. 3x equals 27. X would equal 9. All right, so that's how you do number 2. On number 3, all I would have to do is multiply the top one by 4. I would get 12x minus 4y equals -56. And then 5x plus 4y equals 12. And here my y's cancel out, so I've eliminated y's. Let me see. On number 4, I would probably multiply the top one by 2. So if I multiplied everything by 2, I would get 2x plus 2y equals -6. And then my bottom one is 5x minus 2y equals -50. My y's cancel out, and I'm left with 7x equals -56. And then you guys are good enough to go on from there. Number 5, I have to multiply this bottom one by a -3 because I want it to be positive. A -3y and a positive 3y cancel out. So my top one's going to remain the same, 3x minus 3y equals -3. And if I multiply this bottom one by -3, I get -6x plus 3y equals +15. So be careful of your signs. This one cancels out, -3x. My y's cancel out, equal 12. X then equals -4. And remember, I have to go back and solve for y. All right, so that's how you do the elimination when there's no matching coefficients. But let's take a look when we go down and look at number 7. Okay? I want to do the shortest way possible. I could, if I wanted to, multiply this top one by 3 and this bottom one by negative, I did that all kinds of wrong. I can multiply this top one by -7 and this bottom one by 3. That way my x's would cancel out, -21x and a positive 21x. I can do that. But I want to take the simple route. I know that this is 8y, so I can multiply this top one by -2. And when I do that, watch what happens. -6x minus 8y equals -12. And my bottom one remains 7x plus 8y equals 10. And now my y's cancel out. And I have x equals -2. And then I go back and solve for y. So you can manipulate any equation you want. You just got to be consistent. And remember, there's always going to be an easier way to do it. What I do one way, you may not do the same way. You may have looked at this and thought, oh, I better multiply that top one by -7 and that bottom one by 3. And you canceled your x's out. And take a look at what happens there. -21x minus 28y equals -42. The bottom one is 21x plus 24y equals 30. Now my x's have canceled out, and I'm left with -4y equals 8, and then y equals -2. Okay? But I didn't choose to do it that way, my original way. So know that there are two ways to do it. All right, so if you look at number 8, I'm going to have to multiply the top and bottom ones. So I may multiply the top one by 4 and the bottom one by -3 because maybe I want to get my y's to cancel out. Maybe you want to get your x's to cancel out, so you multiply differently. But if I do my y's, I have 12x plus 12y equals 36, -15x minus 12y equals -30. My y's have canceled out. I'm left with -3x equals 6, x then equals -2, and of course you got to go back in and solve for y. Okay, so that's a real quick video to show you elimination when there's not a common coefficient. And make sure you come and see me if you have questions. Now on number 10, remember my first rule never changes, right? My first rule is always we line them up. X's, y's equal constant term. I always line mine up in standard form. So the first thing I'm going to do on number 10 is I have to move 4y over. So I get 2x minus 4y equals 18. It's a positive 18. And then -5x minus 6y equals 3. And now I have to ask myself, what am I going to do to get these variables to cancel out? What I'm probably going to do is multiply this top one by 3 and this bottom one by -2 because I want my y's to cancel out here. So watch what happens. 6x minus 12y equals 18 times 3 is 54. And then the bottom one becomes 10x plus 12y equals -6. So there's many ways I can manipulate these variables. My y's cancel out, and I'm left with 16x equals 48. And then x equals 3. Okay, and then I would go back and solve for y. So practice that on your homework, and then if you have questions, I would love to see you guys in tutoring.